welcome to season 3 of the Culture Stew podcast.
That's new language for these guys.
Mm.
Those who are in decision-making positions who work on, increasing the bottom line. They need to hear that language and be shown with evidence how that works. Once you can do that, then you start to see the needle move. And that's what I've been seeing with the work I've been doing.
So tell us a little bit more about some of the work that you've been doing, because I know that you have worked in very traditionally male-dominated industries. Mining, forestry, I know is one that's really been a part of your life. And yeah, absolutely, I can understand where it is incumbent on you to provide that value proposition. How do you, I guess I'd love to hear a little bit about the practices that you have found to be most successful when it comes to shifting that mindset. And also, what's the experience been like for you as a woman, trying to say, people who are like me, bring value to your industry? Because I can imagine that would be a little bit frustrating sometimes.
Yes, well, I certainly have had a long experienced career being the only woman in these sort of sectors in whatever meeting and so forth. I know probably a lot of your listeners understand that, being in those shoes. And it's because I have a science undergraduate degree, and I was always in the science realm of things, so in the STEM fields. But to your question about what were you saying, the tips you wanted to know of how to get these guys on board? Well, I guess the way I look at it, so it's what I've done in my book. So really hammering home this value proposition notion. And it's not just the business case that you can pick up and read in the McKinsey reports, which are very helpful, and would love to talk about a recent one that they did last year, which really shows the difference between the early adopters of GDI versus those who are, I would call the laggards, who have done nothing, and they're going backwards in terms of their economic returns on that investment. But it's really getting across the business case. And then secondly, I speak about the cost of inaction. A lot of people think about that. And the cost of inaction includes things like sexual harassment cases, hazing that happens in the forest sector. There's been a lot of hazing rituals, like offsite on their workforce camps. Things like that, where you get into legal challenges and they're very costly. Here in Canada, we've had a lot of that with the military, huge payouts. Like, I don't want to get into the dollar figures, but we're talking a ton of money to pay out for harassment suits. People aren't thinking that way. It's like, if you get ahead of this, you can actually not have to worry about that. Not only that, but it affects your brand and reputation, which is a cost that you cannot even put a dollar to. It's like, you suddenly you're sort of getting 10-foot pulled as an organization to be working for, and you're not attracting the best and the brightest anymore. And so it's a ripple effect that has many linkages that people I don't think are thinking through.
Yeah.
So getting that message across is number one. So the whole economic side for me. Then there's the social side. How men need to understand too, how there's social benefits to them from things like work-life policies, or sorry, you might want to cut that part out. Work-life policies that affect both men and women, because they see it as a women's thing. And once you can kind of recognize it's not a women's issue, this is an everybody issue, and there's benefits for them too. They can also go and attend their children's events at, say, 4:00 without being seen as not committed to their career, or their upward mobility is not affected. They need to understand that too. They need a safe space also. And that, although women are the lightning rods for these policies to be put in place, the fact of the matter is they benefit. And so getting that message across too, I think, is really helpful to them, quietly recognizing that, yeah, actually, I can see how this is better for everyone.
Right.
So that's a big piece of it, I would say, in terms of waking up the conversation in a different way.
Mm-hmm. How have you found, when it comes to producing lasting change in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion in some of these traditionally homogeneous industries, right? What have been some of the what have been some of the levers that you've had to pull beyond, it's making the business case, making the value proposition, but then there's also the follow through and the implementation of strategies, right? So can you share with us a little bit more about what you have seen lead to the highest level of impact in terms of strategies?
Sure. So it starts for me with the leadership. I know a lot of people want to just implement unconscious bias training through the HR's branch of the organization. That's not going to do it.
Right.
The way I look at it is it's more of a leadership commitment where they are visible and regularly displaying a commitment to this shift in their workplace. And they are in tight lockstep with the communications arm and the HR arm. Communications is making sure the messaging is correct on what the workplace culture expects of them, and various mechanisms for recognition and many things you can do with comms. The HR is where they're building that skills and knowledge capacity in the people, but it starts with the leadership. So that's my I've seen a lot of success around that, and even the work I'm doing across the whole sector is working in that fashion.
So I definitely want to come back to that and ask you about some of the work that you're doing specifically in forestry, but you mentioned your book, and I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about the book, Lead the Change, The Competitive Advantage of Gender Diversity and Inclusion.
The Culture Stew podcast is a product of MSM Global Consulting and produced by Shelby Rowe Productions. Please give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform so other people can find us. There are many ways to connect and keep the conversation going with us. Check out our website at www.msmglobalconsulting.com. You can also share your thoughts with us directly by emailing info@msmglobalconsulting.com and putting Culture Stew in the headline. Follow us on Instagram at MSM_global, Facebook at MSM Global Consulting, Twitter at Global MSM, and LinkedIn at MSM Global Consulting. Let's keep the conversation going.